Guys, it's virtual, and today we're actually playing a different game than Dual Universe. I wanted to make a video, or maybe even a series, on how to fly Flight Assist off in Elite Dangerous. So I am a 100% Flight Assist off pilot in Elite Dangerous, and I decided I'd like to share some of the knowledge with you guys. So in this video, I'm going to be going over probably the most basic technique, and then how you can increase the technique to definitely a higher level, and this technique is called tethering. So what tethering is, in essence, is taking a point on a moving body and sticking your ship to it as if it were, using your thrusters. On a station like this one that's spinning, I can find a location on the station. Let's say this little point down here. This is pretty cool. Fly down here to this point right here, and I can actually kind of put the ship on it. Fly right in front of the ship, keep my cursor centered on that point, and use my thrusters to tether. Just like so. This is what it looks like. That's going to take a little bit of practice, and practice always makes perfect with all things like this. Now, in the nose-in orientation, I'm using my forward and backward throttle to maintain the tether. In essence, what I'm doing is I'm flying a circle with a radius of however far out this station is from the axis of rotation, around the station, and it's more simple for my brain to process because all I have to do is just focus on keeping the cursor on a point on the thing here. However, if I let go of my joystick, the ship starts drifting away because the station is rotating. It's also worth noting that with physics like this, a higher radius from the center of rotation equals a higher speed. If you look down at my speed, I'm actually doing 94 right now, but if I come away from this point a little bit more and still try to stay tethered to it, I'm actually having to use my vertical thrust to speed the ship up. So even out this far away, I'm going 20, 30 units of speed of faster than I was inside. And if you're at a station with a ring, this is also some really good practice. Something you have to kind of disconnect in your brain is that when you're tethered, or that when you're flying flight assist off, your forward throttle equals going forward. That's probably the most important lesson you learn from this specific exercise. What's actually happening is I'm actually flying canopy, like I'm flying in the direction of my canopy. So like if there was a vertical arrow coming off my mini-map, that's the direction I'm flying. And even if I look behind myself, I'll see my jet trails, right? However, there's different orientations we can do this in. So maybe instead of doing the nose-in orientation, we can do the belly-in orientation. Right, so instead of using my vertical thrust, now I'm using my downward thrust to stay tethered to the station. There's other orientations you can do too, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that in just a second, and a place that's cool on the station for use like that. However, I'd like to point out something about what you can do in the nose-in orientation first. You can actually change your point of tethering, and this is actually a really good exercise to use to help yourself not overcorrect. When I first started, trying to tether, I was like this. Like I couldn't keep the ship in the same place. I was always, I was going crazy, and there was no way that I was able to steady myself. But you kind of just have to be careful. You have to whisper onto the joystick as if it were, and be very careful with it, and don't overcorrect. That's probably it's one of the most challenging flight assist off things. But anyway, like I was mentioning, changing your point of tethering. So I can actually use my lateral thruster and come over here to this point and tether to it. Right, and the same with this one, I can use the vertical thruster to go up here and tether to it. This is probably the next thing you want to master after you figure out, single orientation tethering, like the belly in or etc. I can even go down like this, diagonals using 2-axis, and tether to this one. This is actually a pretty cool point on the station that I found here that you can use for this purpose. Alright, now I'd like to show you guys these little columns here. These are amazing practice things for, it's kind of like a punching bag if you're learning karate, These are also perfect for belly-in tethering because you can actually tether to them like this, and it's actually something you can look at instead of just the space. So I'm looking at that little X right there on the that the metal makes as it's welded together on the station, and I'm trying to keep my ship right on that X as well as my cursor with the belly-in tether. Now there's other orientations too, as you might imagine. You can do the sideways. So now instead of using my vertical or forward thrusters to stay tethered, I'm using the lateral thrusters. And you can try this in all the different orientations and figure out where you need practice and how you can improve. For me, the upside down orientation is probably the hardest. I definitely need some practice with that. But yeah, I would say that this is probably the beginner to intermediate tethering practice that you can do, and the next level of tethering is going to be like orbiting and changing your orientation as you fly. So an example of this is starting off at a sideways tether on one of these poles, and then go ahead and try to orbit the pole, right? So it's almost like I've taken a cross section of the pole, and I'm trying to keep my gold cursor along that cross section. If the pole was rotating, we'd be tethered to a rotating pole as well as a rotating station. So this adds an extra level of complexity to your exercise. And if you can do this, you're pretty decent at flying flight assist off. There's also other things you can do. With that rotation that I just showed you, you're only using your lateral thrusters to maintain tethered. However, you can do the orbit over this pole vertically. You can go up and over. Now I'm using my forward thrusters to stay tethered. And then if I go down again, then I'm using the opposite vertical thrust. And you can do this back and forth, and however you choose to. After a while, it kind of becomes like a graceful dance, as if it were, like the Sidewinder is a ballerina. There's a lot of practice to be had. Don't expect to get this overnight. It took me weeks. But if you practice hard enough, what they say is practice makes perfect. Now we can have a little bit of fun with this instead of just, practicing constantly. We can, this specific station is awesome to fly through. There's these little, you might not have noticed them before, but these little tubes that go over with these crossbeams on them, and you can actually fly into it. Instead of thinking that you're flying into something the first time you do this, I would just think, oh, I'm just tethered to the tube and I'm just going to go down, right? Now I'm tethered to this little building right here. But what's actually happening is you're doing an awesome maneuver in flight assist off. Once you get some practice, you can have some fun. You can fly around the station, change your orientation, do some aerobatics, show off to your friends. And then once you get good at flying around the station, probably the next level of flight assist off practice for you is going to be boosting. Now, boosting in flight assist off is interesting. There are some techniques that we use that you might not have thought of. That'll probably be the next video in the series, is how to boost in flight assist off. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And also, if you like the video, don't forget to drop a like and or subscribe. I'll see you guys later.